and welcome to CVR English. I'm Shekina, bringing you the latest updates from around the globe, from clashes in Minneapolis to developments in Ukraine, Russia, Venezuela and beyond. We have all the top international stories lined up for you. Let's begin with the stories making waves worldwide. Let's start in North America, where violent clashes have returned to Minneapolis after another immigration enforcement shooting by an ICE agent. Here's the full report. Violent clashes have returned to Minneapolis after a second immigration enforcement shooting by an ICE agent who wounded a Venezuelan man during an arrest following a struggle. The incident follows the recent fatal shooting of Renee Nicole Good, a 37-year-old woman killed by federal agents, which ignited massive anti-ICE protests. Demonstrators have blocked vehicles, thrown projectiles and faced off with law enforcement as tensions continue to flare across the city. Moving to South America, thousands of Venezuelan workers poured into the streets in a mass mobilization demanding the release of President Nicolas Maduro and First Lady Celia Flores. Let's take a look at the protests. Thousands of Venezuelan workers poured into the streets in a mass mobilization demanding the release and return of President Nicolas Maduro and the First Lady Celia Flores following their detention by US forces earlier this month. Branded the Grand March of Workers, the protesters saw the oil workers, union leaders and cultural activists wave banners, chant slogans and accuse Washington of imperialist interference in Venezuela's internal affairs. Demonstrators rejected U.S. allegations linking Maduro to drug trafficking, insisting the charges were fabricated to justify foreign intervention and control over Venezuela's vast oil reserves. Protesters voiced loyalty to Maduro, condemned President Donald Trump's actions and vowed to continue street demonstrations until their leader is freed.
A Donald Trump, a ese miserable invasor, que nos devuelva a nuestro presidente Nicolás. Ya está comprobado que él es inocente. El cartel de los soles no existe. Nicolás no es ningún narcotraficante. No entiendo por qué no nos los han devuelto aún. Entonces, bueno, desde aquí a Cilia y a nuestro presidente le enviamos toda la fuerza y el amor de este pueblo que va a seguir en las calles esperando su regreso.
Demostrando nuestra lealtad al presidente Nicolás Maduro y a nuestra primera dama Silvia Flores. La clase obrera venezolana sigue en la calle exigiéndole al gobierno imperialista norteamericano que libere a nuestro presidente, que lo tiene secuestrado. Nosotros rechazamos profundamente y contundentemente las acciones injerencistas del gobierno norteamericano.
El imperio puede hacer lo que quiera, pero nosotros estamos aquí para decirle que somos libres, soberanos e independientes. Se puede reunir con quien quiera, pero tiene que reunirse con quien hoy representa al gobierno. Tiene que liberar a Nicolás Maduro y a Silvia Flores, nuestro presidente.
And back in the United States, President Donald Trump praised Venezuela's Delcy Rodriguez, calling her a terrific person after a long phone call. Here's more on that diplomatic shift. US President Donald Trump praised Venezuela's Delcy Rodriguez during remarks to reporters, calling her a terrific person after what he described as a long and productive phone call. Trump said discussions covered a range of issues and suggested Washington is now getting along very well with Venezuela's new leadership. The comment signaled a notable shift in tone in US-Venezuela relations, drawing attention in Washington and beyond as observers watch for signs of a broader diplomatic reset.
Yeah. Mr. President, on Venezuela, Cabello, the de facto number 2 in Venezuela right now, he seemed pretty reluctant to work with the U.S. And obviously he's
they just gave us 50 million barrels of oil.
The number 2, the Venezuela security chief.
I know the number 1. We just had a great conversation today, and she's a terrific person. I mean, she's somebody that we've worked with very well. Marco Rubio is dealing with her. I dealt with her this morning. We had a long call. We discussed a lot of things, and I think we're getting along very well with Venezuela. Yes.
Mr. President, you created a new Assistant Attorney General position dedicated to rooting out fraud in the United States.
Yeah, it's fantastic. The person is fantastic.
Who is it?
It's a he.
When are you
I will tell you maybe within minutes. I mean, I don't know if it's appropriate to say yet because we're going through a process, but we have chosen a person who's very tough, very smart, very fair.
And
you gave a speech yesterday in Michigan about how you've recalibrated the American economy to work for workers, U.S. auto factories. We've seen core inflation's completely tamed. You lowered the trade deficits, the lowest amount since 2009. American exports are growing, but we're all still waiting on the Supreme Court case for the tariffs. Given the success that you've had in the first 12 months, what is at stake in this case, sir?
It's a little bit like whole milk. I can't believe we even have a case. This was a case started by very China-centric people and also anti-American people, frankly, people that don't want us to do well. Tariffs have helped us stop 8 wars. They've helped us get the best trade numbers we've ever had. They've helped us get 18 numbers like this. We have plants going up. You know, you mentioned I was in Michigan yesterday. I was at the Ford plant where they make the Ford 150. It's one of the original plants. It was from before World War I. It's a giant plant. That plant was probably going to be closed. And 2 years ago, they were doing very poorly. And now they just announced yesterday that they're going to go 24 hours around the clock. 3 shifts, which they rarely do. That's Ford, and Ford's having the best numbers they've ever had. General Motors having the best numbers they've ever had. Stellantis, which hasn't been here, is now investing billions, tens of billions of dollars on building in the country. We're building auto plants all over the country. We're building AI all over the country. We're leading China by a lot, and a lot of it has to do with tariffs. That would be a very disappointing decision. And especially since the people that are fighting me are people that want China to do well. And we're doing great against China. We're doing great against everybody. We're the hottest country anywhere in the world. As I say often, we're right now the hottest.
Turning to Europe, Donald Trump's remarks on Ukraine has sparked outrage as he claimed President Zelensky is holding up a peace deal, not Vladimir Putin. Let's hear the details.
You're gambling with the lives of millions of people.
You underestimate Ukraine.
A chill of political tension swept across the Oval Office as US President Donald Trump leveled a startling claim. The stalled peace process in Ukraine, not Moscow's aggression, lies with Kyiv. Speaking to Reuters, Trump asserted that Russian President Vladimir Putin is prepared to end his nearly 4-year military campaign in Ukraine, while Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky remains hesitant. Zelensky, Trump said, when asked why negotiations under US mediation had yet to resolve Europe's largest land conflict since World War II. The president added that Putin is ready to make a deal, whereas Ukraine is less ready to make a deal. Trump's assertion contrasts sharply with the narrative advanced by European allies, who have consistently portrayed Moscow as the principal driver of military escalation and as rejecting multiple peace overtures from Trump's envoys. Hours earlier, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov reiterated Moscow's position, emphasizing that Russia is not seeking a simple ceasefire, but a broader peace agreement that addresses the conflict on its own terms.
All previous meetings with President Trump's special envoy, Mr. Witkoff, and recently joined Mr. Kushner were serious, concrete, and aimed at sorting the root causes of the Ukrainian crisis and finding ways to overcome those root causes, because otherwise we can't expect sustainable and lasting peace. A fire for 60 days or a
Kiev. Very little has been done in the capital. Even in these days, I do not see the intensity. This needs to be urgently corrected. There must be solutions. A state of emergency in the energy sector will be legally introduced. This will provide more opportunities. The Cabinet of Ministers of Ukraine will simplify everything related to connecting backup power equipment to the grids as much as possible. Zero bureaucracy. I instructed an increase in the import capacity of electricity. All business opportunities. There should be more support points for people in Kiev and other cities. Much more points of resilience. I instructed a review of the curfew rules during the state of emergency.
The contrast between Washington's framing of the stalled peace talks and Moscow's insistence on negotiations that address the root causes of the conflict underscores the fragile and contested nature of diplomacy in the region. With winter biting into civilian life and the political rhetoric intensifying, the prospects for an immediate resolution appear increasingly uncertain.
Meanwhile, in Greece, US Federal Reserve Governor Stephen Miran criticized foreign central banks for defending Fed Chair Jerome Powell amid political tensions. Hear this story. U.S. Federal Reserve Governor Stephen Miran said comments by foreign central banks defending Fed Chair Jerome Powell amid an indictment threat were not appropriate, stressing that non-monetary political issues should not involve central bankers, especially from abroad. Speaking at an economic forum in Greece, Miran dismissed concerns over U.S. institutional stability and exaggerated and driven by clicks. He also argued that deregulation under President Donald Trump is reducing inflationary pressure and strengthening the case for interest rate cuts, saying regulatory rollbacks could boost productivity and lower inflation over the coming years.
No, I mean, no. I believe in always advocating for what I think is the right policy, and that's what I always do in monetary policy. That's what I always do in my previous life when I was dealing with non-monetary policy issues. I always focus on trying to do what I think is the right thing, and what other people say is what other people say.
Because I see so much disinflation coming from other parts of the index. When you look at market rents in the United States, they've been growing at a 1% rate for 2 years.
The institutions in the United States are very, very strong. And what matters at the end of the day is whether policy is good or bad. And capital flows ultimately follow economic growth. They ultimately follow the returns on capital. And if the returns on capital continue to be good because the economic growth is good, because policy is good, because policy is the right settings, then that's not something that worries me at all. So I think, again, it's a story of people, writing things for clicks.
Okay, wonderful.
Now to Eastern Europe and Asia, where Russian forces have captured 8 settlements and over 300 square kilometers of territory in Ukraine since early January. Let's see the latest battlefield updates. Russian forces have captured 8 settlements and over 300 square kilometers of territory in Ukraine since early January, according to Chief of General Staff Valery Gerasimov. Advances span multiple fronts, with the northern, western, southern, eastern and central groups making strategic gains, liberating towns such as Gorobovskoye and Kupiansky-Ozholowy, Sarvatsky, Krasnoyarsk and Dmitro. Street battles continue. Ukrainian resistance is being dismantled and Russian troops are expanding security perimeters in key regions, including Sumy, Kharkov and Zaporizhzhia.
И, форсировав реку Гайчур, развивает наступление в Запорожской области и одновременно с этим расширяет полосу безопасности в Днепропетровской области. Соединения и воинские части группировки Днепр наступают в направлении города Запорожье, освобождены населенные пункты Белогорье и Новобайковская. Наиболее упорные бои развернулись в зоне ответственности группировки войск «Центр». Соединения и воинские части группировки, завершив ликвидацию окруженного противника, руководству подчиненными соединениями и воинскими частями, командующими и командирами, эти планы противника сорваны. Сегодня в ходе нашей работы более подробно рассмотрим результаты выполнения боевых задач соединениями и воинскими частями группировки войск «Центр», а также уточним задачи и порядок дальнейших действий. Приступаем к работе.
Israeli residents gathered in the city of Holon to rally in solidarity with protesters in Iran as nationwide demonstrations continue to shake the Islamic Republic. Footage shows demonstrators chanting slogans, waving flags and holding signs reading "Free Iran" and "Don't be scared, we are all together." The protests come as Iran faces its most severe domestic unrest since the 1979 Islamic Revolution, with authorities struggling to contain demonstrations that began over economic hardship and rapidly escalated. Iranian officials have acknowledged a high death toll, while rights groups say the number of fatalities is even higher, raising fears of further regional escalation.
We are here to say to the Iranian people that they're not alone, that we are with them. We They are in our minds. We will try to actually spiritually be with them as much as possible. We cry with them, we feel their pain, and like them, we also hope that they would gain their freedom as soon as possible.
שיעבור מתל אביב למדינה של רק برادر ارتشی اشتباه نکنید نه از بیماری بلکه از گلوله زنده عرب طور לכולם شب بخیر event here is today. From the time of Cyrus the Great, the father of Israel.
A sus hermanos y hermanas, antes de luchar por la paz y la coexistencia.
Both of our people know what it means to live under the shadow of a genocidal regime.
Iranian Army Chief Commander Amir Hatami has reaffirmed that Tehran considers Israel's threat to be real and existential, stressing that Iran is fully preparing to respond. Speaking in Tehran, Hatami accused external forces of exploiting economic protests and turning them into armed unrest as tensions rise following comments from Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. The remarks come amid widespread protests in Iran, sparked by economic hardship and a weakening currency, further intensifying regional instability.
تهدید رژیم صهیونیستی علیه جمهوری اسلامی ایران امروز یک تهدید واقعی به نوعی تهدید موجودیتی ماست و ما این تهدید رو کاملا جدی گرفتیم و در حد و اندازه این تهدید در واقع داریم خودمون رو آماده می‌کنیم. این اتفاقاتی که در واقع در سوء استفاده از یک اعتراض معمولی صنفی در کشور اونها
Now to Africa, where Senegal football fans celebrated their AFCON semi-final victory over Egypt. But joy was overshadowed by anger after the US suspended visa processing for citizens of 75 countries, including Senegal. Here's the full story. Senegal football fans poured onto the streets of Dakar to celebrate their national team's dramatic AFCON semi-final victory over Egypt, sealed by the late Sadio Mane goal. However, the scenes of jubilation were quickly overshadowed by anger after the Trump administration announced an indefinite suspension of US visa processing for citizens of 75 countries, including Senegal. Supporters voiced strong condemnation of the move, warning it could block their plans to travel to the United States for the upcoming World Cup and insisting that a global tournament must remain open to fans from all nations. The controversy has added a political edge to Senegal's AFCON celebrations as the team prepares to face Morocco in the final on January 19.
le déstabilise comme ça, c'est pas bon. C'est pas bon.
Toujours la zone sur le CPA. Pourquoi t'as dit le Sénégal pour le médaille et nous allons retirer la parole? T'as-tu les mots par
Très content, je suis très content. Vraiment, parce que le Sénégal qui gagne. Et surtout Sadio Mané, le but c'est tellement joli. Tellement joli, vraiment, je suis content.
Dans tous les pays africains ou bien Europe ou bien Asie, si vous organisez une coupe du monde, vraiment, tu vas inviter tout le monde.
And finally to the Arctic region, where Greenlanders expressed relief after US, Danish and Greenlandic officials met at the White House to discuss Arctic tensions. Here's how locals are reacting. Greenlanders expressed relief after US, Danish and Greenlandic officials met at the White House to discuss Arctic tensions following President Donald Trump's repeated interest in acquiring the territory. While a working group was agreed upon future talks, locals remain concerned about potential US influence over their culture, language and way of life. Families in Nuuk, including craftswoman Liv Aurora Jensen, described feeling both relief and fear, highlighting the shock of seeing the Americans, once considered allies, now seemingly a threat. Residents hope continued diplomacy will protect Greenland's sovereignty and unique lifestyle.
And it is a good sign.
The American used to be the good guys, you know, they help us, but now they all of a sudden are our enemy, and that is a shock. I really have to control myself not to start crying or panicking or what if, you know, really to control my mind and not to, you know, let it spin all the thoughts. But we have been talking about it in our family and the people I know. It's really frightening.
Og det er jo aktiviteter, der gør, at vi kan være mere, og dermed også have nogle bedre forudsætninger, end vi har før.
We are afraid of that he can take us like that, and our culture will disappear, our language will disappear, and the whole way of living in Greenland will disappear and be American. We are so fortunate that we have free education, free hospital, free dentist, free school, and free medicine. And if he comes here, you know, we have, what is happening? What will happen to us?
Når jeg også aflæser det krop på, at der er et element af, at man i hvert fald tænker, at nogle af de...
Som du også siger, vi skal selvfølgelig høre, hvad de selv siger til det her, og det får vi hvor delegationen her altså kommer hen. Jakob, hvad skal der ske hos dig?
That wraps up the world news for this hour on CVR English. I'm Shekina, thanking you for joining us. Stay tuned for more updates and in-depth coverage as events continue to unfold across the globe. Until next time, take care and have a good evening.